When exactly does a junior developer become a senior developer? This question drives many people in the development field because many aspire to eventually become a senior. And the recurring question is, how does one achieve that? What is required? What skills and what knowledge must one have? And how do you know when you've reached that milestone and can actually call yourself a senior? Well, I can't answer this specifically for you, but I can tell you the exact moment when I transitioned from junior to senior. It was the second in the spring of 2007 when I switched jobs and signed a new employment contract. From that point on, I was no longer a junior web developer but a senior architect. And if you find this answer a little bit disappointing, thinking it doesn't really tell anything about me personally, about who I am, or anything about my skills or abilities, you're absolutely right. This means that one thing you can certainly not base it on is what's written in the employment contract. And if you want to know what differentiates a junior from a senior, how to get there, what to look out for, and hear my personal opinion on the topic, then today's video is for you. And having said that, hello and welcome to our new weekly. First and foremost, of course, I did not magically transition from a junior web developer to a senior architect overnight, even if it appeared that way on paper. The funny part is that the title of senior architect was an error made by my then new employer. They accidentally included it in my new contract. I should have been an architect, not a senior architect, and I even pointed out that mistake, but they decided not to change it and suggested I should consider it as a gift for my CV. Anyway, the core question remains, what's the actual difference between a junior and a senior developer? A simple way to distinguish between them might be to look at the age. Someone who is young is likely a junior, and someone who is a bit older might be seen as a senior. While this is one metric, and I'd say this upfront, it's not a particularly good one, maybe at least it's one metric. And the employer I began with, the one who made the error with my contract, is an awesome example that age and seniority don't necessarily correlate. Back then I was roughly 30, 29, 30, something around that, and all my new colleagues were between 45 and 60 years old. I would have been the youngest in the team if not for one exception, a colleague who has just turned 20. He caught my attention from day one, not because he was young, I mean, who cares about age, right? But for two other reasons. First, he consistently ignored core working hours, often not showing up until noon, though he'd stay late into the night at least. But secondly, and this is probably why they allowed this, he was technically brilliant. I don't know how else to phrase it, except that he was an exceptional talent. I remember this day when he came into the office on a Monday noon and shared what he did over the weekend, which was writing a compiler for COBOL, because he wanted to learn it. And he wrote it in Fortran, because he wanted to learn that as well. And what was astonishing was, while he wasn't a master in COBOL or Fortran after just one weekend, of course, what he achieved in that short time was far more substantial than what many of other developers, including all the older colleagues, would have managed in a similar time frame. It was genuinely impressive. Yet, of course, he wasn't perfect. Another aspect that he clearly lacked due to his age was professional experience. This wasn't about technological knowledge, because there was absolutely no doubt about his capabilities. It was more about interpersonal skills, how to behave in a team, dealing with clients, resolving conflicts, and so on. And there are people who naturally excel in these areas, instinctively doing the right things. Still, just like with technical skills, interpersonal skills get better with practice. And it's evident that someone in their early 20s can't have the same experience as someone in their 50s. This means that alongside technical expertise, another essential aspect is personal growth. Learning to stay calm, becoming more confident, having prior experiences to draw upon in crucial moments, and so on. In summary, age alone isn't a reliable indicator. Whether someone has gained any technical experience over time, developed any interpersonal skills, or how adeptly someone can understand and solve problems or not, is ultimately not a question of age, but of talent, knowledge, and experience. This means it's about a combination of learning and gaining experience. It's about foresight. It's about keeping the overview. It's about being able to predict consequences, bringing puzzle pieces together into a bigger picture, and assess things from different perspectives and so on. And the underlying foundation for all of this is time, because it takes time to learn. It also takes time to gather experiences. It takes time to evolve. And that, I believe, is why being senior is so often seen as equivalent with age, because as one gets older, naturally more time has passed. The question, however, is whether one has used that time effectively. If day in, day out, I do precisely the same thing, if I don't evolve, if I don't learn anything new, then at best I end up with a lot of experience in a very narrow field. I might be a senior in that very specific domain, but certainly not in other areas. Conversely, someone who has been immersed in a particular field from a young age might already be a senior in their early years, simply because they've had far more intense experiences than many others, even if they are much older. So as I said, time is undoubtedly a factor, but age itself is not. And there's another point to consider, which I indirectly touched upon earlier. One doesn't engage with all topics in life to the same extent. This is most evident with technology. Every developer, myself included of course, is proficient in one or more programming languages, some better than others, but no one masters all programming languages that exist, let alone to the same degree. For instance, I think I'm quite knowledgeable in JavaScript, TypeScript and Node.js. I'm also well versed in Go. I'm familiar with event sourcing, CQS, distributed architecture, microservices, cloud, and many of the topics we address at the native web. But this is just a tiny fraction of what I theoretically could know. I have absolutely no knowledge of Julia. I've never written a line of Rust. I don't have a solid understanding of how to program a game or a mobile app. By the way, talking about games, apart from what I got to learn in that cool live stream with Manuel Rauber last year, see the info card if you haven't seen it, but please bear in mind that it's in German. Then there's a vast area in between. Yes, I've done a little bit of assembler programming, but not in depth. I can read and comprehend Python code, but I'm definitely not seasoned in Python, and so on. What I want to emphasize is we so readily slap labels like junior or senior on a person, but we should be doing it on a more granular scale, referring to individual areas of expertise. Because one can be highly experienced in one domain and completely inexperienced in another. And then there's another thing to consider. There is no clear dividing line. It's not just a matter of I know what I'm talking about or I don't. As mentioned before, there's a significant shady area in between. So where exactly is the point at which one can say, yes, I'm knowledgeable, or no, I'm still lacking something? And this is where the famous Dunning-Kruger Effect comes into play. The less I know about something, the more likely I am to believe that I'm well informed, simply because I'm unaware of what I don't know. Conversely, the more I know about a topic, the more I recognize what I don't know, making me feel less informed. In other words, individuals with limited experience often overestimate themselves, while those with substantial experience tend to underestimate themselves. From an outsider's perspective, it's often way easier to judge, but self-assessment can be very challenging. And what greatly bothers me in this entire narrative is the pigeonholing associated with the terms junior and senior. The moment someone is labeled as a junior, their reputation, or in the worst case, even the respect for them, often diminishes. Conversely, if someone is introduced to you as a senior software architect, it might sound pretty impressive at first, but in a sense, it doesn't truly reveal much. Yet we quickly box people into categories without considering their individual unique skills and knowledge. And not only is this unfair on a human level, but it's also often doesn't do justice to the situation. Well, as you watch this video, you can probably sense my struggle with these terms, and you might still find it hard to accurately assess yourself, wondering how the Dunning-Kruger effect applies to yourself. If you feel that you are well informed, is it accurate? Or do you believe that only because you are unaware of the vastness of what you don't know? So what could be a more reliable metric to gauge this? In my opinion, there's actually a good indicator, a different model to measure seniority. The question is, how often do you need assistance from other developers, and how well can you help others with their issues and guide them? If you're more reliant on others, be it for fixing mistakes, structuring code cleanly, or implementing code quality measures, then you are likely more of a junior developer. However, if you are the person who regularly assists others with these issues, someone others turn to for guidance and advice, then you are probably more of a senior developer. And I believe this is a question everyone honestly answer for oneself. Would you be capable of extensively training others, explaining things in detail, elaborating on why certain facts are as they are, and so on? And answering this question gives insight into where you fall on the spectrum from junior to senior for a given topic. And as mentioned, this can vary depending on the subject. Completely independent of how you currently assess yourself or how you measure up, which I actually find to be a rather awkward phrasing because it brings connotations of performance evaluation and testing. Regardless of that, the good news is if you want to improve, no matter the area or field or your current point on that spectrum, you can work on it. You can try to learn more about the subject. You can aim to gain more experience by putting yourself in situations where you have to apply what you've learned so far, where you'll inevitably make mistakes and fail, but you'll learn from those mistakes and draw from those experiences. And find someone, perhaps a mentor, to support you. No one says you have to walk this sometimes rocky and challenging path alone. But the initiative, the original initiative, that has to come from you. You need to be proactive and take charge and just get started. The rest will come over time, which also means you must keep on working on those things. And if you do that, sooner or later, you will find that you no longer need as much help or support from others, but instead others start seeking you out for advice and assistance, viewing you as a potential mentor. And that's when you'll realize in retrospect that something has changed. And eventually you'll say, yes, I think that I can now consider myself a senior in this or that area. And having said that, I think I'm going to wrap up for today. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please feel free to share it with your colleagues. And besides that, have a nice Sunday evening and of course a great start to the new week tomorrow. And as always, take care of yourself, stay healthy, and then let's see each other again next week in our new video. So far, have a great evening, take care and goodbye.